Welcome back, Defenders. Today, let's start with a quote of the day from Ukraine's Ministry of Defense. Do not try to make circumstances fit your plans. Make plans that fit the circumstances. General Patton. This week might be eventful. Erdogan says efforts to end Ukraine war at a turning point. It might be at a turning point, but not for the reasons that people are publicly saying. What is this entire week about? And this entire week is basically about cornering Donald Trump to force him to do the right thing. Like a game of tennis, Russia and Ukraine court Trump to avoid being blamed for peace talk failures. Russia doesn't want peace. Russia doesn't want to stop the war. So Russia is trying to make it look like it's Ukraine's fault that the war doesn't stop, and Ukraine, rightfully so, is trying to make it look like Russia is the one who doesn't stop the war. Ukraine desperately still needs the economic partnership and cooperation of the United States, as well as at least the sale of military equipment for them to continue fighting this war. So this was the master plan. Putin had his big day on May 9th, the Victory Day parade. Something like 20 heads of state attended the parade in Moscow. May 10th, European leaders went to Kyiv to steal the headlines, and they gave an ultimatum to the Russians, EU to unveil new sanctions against Russia on May 14th. So what the European leaders said on May 10th is that by Monday, Russia must agree to a 30-day ceasefire, or else crippling sanctions will be applied to Russia. Macron of France was talking to Trump. Trump agreed. Starmer of the UK was talking to Trump. Trump agreed. In theory, Donald Trump and the United States will participate in increasing sanctions on Russia if Russia does not agree to a 30-day ceasefire. This is what Germany was saying. Clock is ticking. Germany warns Russia to accept the ceasefire until midnight last night or face new sanctions. If Moscow does not accept the demand, preparations will be set in motion for fresh sanctions, according to the government spokesperson, Stefan Cornelius. Even China was on board with this. China, after she attended the May 9th Victory Day parade, publicly supported the Europeans' plan that Russia should immediately agree to a 30-day ceasefire to engage in peace talks. So Putin had to respond. This was a lot of political pressure coming from the Europeans, coming from the Chinese. Allegedly, Donald Trump was in support of this plan. So Putin gave a 2 a.m. press conference in which he said, "I'm not going to agree to a ceasefire, but I would like to resume unconditional direct talks with Ukraine to negotiate a peace deal." This is a delay tactic. This is stupid. And of course, Donald Trump fell for it. Trump thwarts EU plans when he calls for direct talks with Russia. Because Putin said he wanted to engage in direct talks with Ukraine in Istanbul, Trump said, "Take the meeting. Go meet with the Russians on Thursday and see if you can somehow magically achieve peace." Zelensky says, "Fine, we'll agree to the meeting in Turkey, but get Putin to agree to a ceasefire." But Putin demands no preconditions. Agreeing to a 30-day ceasefire prior to peace talks is a condition, and Russia is rejecting it. Ukraine says Russia fired 108 drones overnight despite the ceasefire deadline. So the Europeans collectively gave Russia their ultimatum. Putin's response was, "What about peace talks in Turkey?" And Donald Trump took the bait, undermining the Europeans' complete resolve. But I want to believe that Zelensky saw this outcome ahead of time, and he was prepared. Zelensky offers to meet Putin in Turkey personally. Zelensky wants to go to Istanbul to meet face-to-face with Putin to resolve this war. Here's the clip. I'm not going to read the subtitles. Let's play it. And this is what Zelensky says and how he sounds about meeting Putin face-to-face.
Я неодноразово підкреслював це президенту Трампу. Вважаю, що Путін не хоче закінчення війни, не хоче припинення вогню, не хоче будь-яких перемовин. Я вже мовчу про те, що він боїться прямих перемовин зі мною.
So that's the trap. Zelensky is deliberately goading Putin, saying that Putin doesn't want to end the war, Putin doesn't want a ceasefire, Putin himself doesn't want to engage in direct negotiations, and Putin is afraid to meet face-to-face with Zelensky. This is like some high school, like alpha male sports rivalry stuff happening, but I actually do think this is effective. I do think this is how Donald Trump thinks and feels, and this is a setup. Zelensky is trying to frame this face-to-face meeting like Putin is going to chicken out because Putin doesn't have any real courage to go to Istanbul to meet Zelensky face-to-face. Here's what Zelensky is saying. Ukraine has always supported diplomacy. I am ready to come to Turkey. Unfortunately, the world still has not received a clear response from Russia to the numerous proposals for a ceasefire. Russian shelling and assaults continue. Moscow has remained silent all day regarding the proposal for a direct meeting. A very strange silence. One way or another, Russia will have to end this war, and the sooner the better. There is no sense in continuing the killing. What's the Kremlin's response? Kremlin reiterates Putin's call for Istanbul talks, but remains silent on possible Zelensky meeting. You can't talk to Russia like this. Moscow pushes back on ceasefire calls. Russia doesn't like being pressured. Russia likes killing people. Russia wants to continue killing as many people as they feel is necessary. So I have to read this. This is Peskov's response to these EU demands and EU threats. And the Russians aren't really taking them serious. Before this warning, we had already heard the warning the day before yesterday, if you remember. They were also voiced in a rather ultimatum way. Such language of ultimatums is unacceptable for Russia. It's not appropriate. One cannot talk to Russia in such a language. As you know, summarizing the results of the festive celebrations in Moscow devoted to May 9th, and numerous meetings and negotiations with our foreign guests, the Russian president issued a statement. In that statement, among other things, he clearly and unequivocally set out our position on the resumption of direct talks in Istanbul without any preconditions. So that's rejecting the ceasefire. The same direct talks that were interrupted by the Ukrainian side in 2022, this approach aimed precisely at finding a real diplomatic solution to the Ukrainian crisis, addressing the root causes of the conflict and establishing lasting peace, has been met with understanding and support from the leaders of many countries, including our partners in the CIS, BRICS, and other countries. In general, we are committed to seriously seeking ways for a long-term peace settlement. No, they're not. China is calling for a 30-day ceasefire. So these are the jokes, these are the memes online. Here are Putin's doubles looking at each other saying, which one of us has to go to Istanbul? Here's an AI-generated pic. To demonstrate strength, Russia sends two Putins to go to Istanbul. Here's the parody account Darth Putin. I have rejected my own offer for direct peace talks with Zelensky. In Putin's press conference, this is what it sounded like, that Putin was willing to engage in direct peace talks with Ukraine. Not to just send some low-level subordinates to go waste some time when they don't have the final decision on anything. If Putin sends Lavrov or any other of his underlings, they can't make decisions. Only the Tsar of Russia, only Putin can make final decisions and negotiate anything. It's one man in Russia that has all the power, all the say to make this stop. According to the Institute for the Study of War, Kremlin portrays Ukraine's surrender terms as a reasonable peace offer to manipulate Western opinion. Yes, Once this Russian delegation meets the Ukrainian delegation in Istanbul, the Russians are just going to say the exact same thing they were saying 3 years ago. Putin's words change, but not his demand that Ukraine surrenders. On Thursday, the Russians once again are going to demand Ukraine's full capitulation, the demilitarization of Ukraine, a reduction in the size of their military to less than 80,000. Ukraine has to promise never to join NATO. Zelensky has to resign and a pro-Russian president must be installed. And Ukraine must surrender the entirety of these 4 regions to get a ceasefire. Not to end the war, just to get a ceasefire. Everything that Russia has failed to take militarily on the battlefield the last 3 years, they just want to be given. For a ceasefire. And I want to remind everyone, the city of Zaporizhia is 700,000 people. The Russians want to be given the entirety of the Zaporizhia administrative borders, so their artillery can then be within striking range of the city of Dnipro, 1 million people. They also want to be given back the north bank of the Dnipro River and the city of Kherson, pre-war population 300,000. They want their artillery to be allowed to be placed within striking range of Mykolaiv, and a short strike if they ever want to take Odessa in the future. So no, Ukraine's not going to agree to this. Even Witkoff, I don't think, supports the city of Zaporizhia being handed over just for a ceasefire. So what is going to happen this week? And Zelensky is going to fly to the capital of Turkey, Ankara. Istanbul is not the capital. And Zelensky is going to meet with Erdogan, putting his hands in the air and saying, "Putin, where are you? Putin, why aren't you here? I'm here to find peace." The talks on Thursday aren't going to do anything. And this is how leading figures in MAGA are responding. I want to play this clip from Ben Shapiro. He is one of the most prominent voices in MAGA. He's a huge Trump supporter. But he's fed up with the Russians. And he thinks it's about time that Donald Trump fully put his support behind Ukraine's cause, because that serves the best interests of the United States. Let me play a little bit of this clip.
Zelensky, who earlier had wanted a truce, a 30-day ceasefire as a condition of the talks, responded immediately. So again, Zelensky is doing the stuff that Trump wants him to do. Let's be clear, who is doing what Trump wants him to do when it comes to Putin Zelensky? The answer is Vladimir Zelensky is doing the stuff Trump wants him to do.
This is a detail that I think people have already forgotten. But initially, Ukraine did not want to offer the Russians a 30-day ceasefire. The United States cut off military aid to Ukraine to force them to offer the Russians a 30-day ceasefire. And now for over 2 months, Putin and the Russians have been ignoring it. For over 2 months, Putin and the Russians have been ignoring Donald Trump's offer of a 30-day ceasefire to then engage in peace talks.
There's no other way to read this. Trump is calling for things and Zelensky is doing them. Trump wants a rare earths minerals deal. Zelensky says, sure. President Trump wants a ceasefire, a 30-day ceasefire. Zelensky says, sure. President Trump wants a 30-day ceasefire out the window so they can negotiate. Zelensky says, sure. And every step of the way, Putin is delaying. Because Putin is basically gambling that at a certain point, President Trump gets bored and walks away. That's the gamble. And it takes a...
Ben Shapiro is correct. This is what the Russians want. They want Donald Trump to get bored and frustrated and then just to walk away. Lift all sanctions on Russia, stop supplying weapons to Ukraine, and ignore the situation. Let the Russians kill everything they want, everyone they want to kill, and take all the land they want to take. It's just a land grab. But because Trump said, let's have the meeting on Thursday, Europe waits for Turkey summit to ask Trump for Russia sanctions. So we're going to do it this weekend. It's going to be stupid. Nothing is going to come of it. But maybe by Monday next week, we can try this again, give Russia the ultimatum, agree to a 30-day ceasefire, or the United States will participate in increasing sanctions on the Russians. If there is no real progress in resolving the Russian-Ukrainian conflict this week, the European Union will impose sanctions against Moscow in the energy and financial sectors. This is the German Chancellor's statement. Okay. I mean, waiting a week isn't a big deal at this point. We've already come this far. But Zelensky has to just indulge Trump, to humor him, to give him no way to wiggle out of this. Trump is desperate to find some way to remain friends with Putin and stay on good terms with the Russians, but Russia is not giving him a choice. This is what he was asked. He was asked directly, are you ready to impose sanctions on Russia if Putin doesn't agree to the 30-day ceasefire? And Trump, as usual, gave a stupid answer.
Mr. President, are you ready to impose sanctions on Russia if Putin doesn't agree with the 30-day ceasefire?
I have a feeling they're going to agree. I do. I have a feeling.
Trump has a feeling that this time it'll be different. And this does not mirror reality. The Kremlin claims that Ukraine is a reincarnation of Nazi Germany. This is what they've been telling their people for 3 years, that all of the Ukrainians are Nazis who have to be exterminated, every single last one of them. The propaganda shift in Russia, this is the polling as of September of 2024, only 16% of Russians have a favorable opinion of the United States. It briefly spiked with Trump's election, but it's going back down. Russia hates us. Russia hates Ukraine, Russia hates Europe, Russia hates the United States. So Donald Trump eventually is going to have to do the right thing after exhausting every other option. And this is how the Russians speak of us in the West. Here is Solovyev once again on Kremlin State TV. Solovyev and Simonyan criticize Trump and threaten Europe. The entire clip is 6 minutes. I'll link it down below, but I just want to read for you the language they're choosing to use when peace talks start on Thursday, allegedly. This is what the Russians are saying. When I see the French and Germans, when I hear their discussions about Ukraine, about Zelensky, I can't feel anything but deep, justified hatred towards them. For this reason, when French and German journalists are asking me, is it true? Yes, it's true. We will destroy all of you. We will destroy your cities if you get involved in this war. And right now, you're positioning yourselves as participants in this war. Talking about sending peacekeepers, talking about sending monitors or increasing sanctions. This is the Russians' response. We will destroy all of you. Your cities will burn and suffer the way cities of Donbass are suffering. It was the Russians that destroyed Mariupol, a city in the Donbass region, killing tens of thousands of innocent civilians. The cities of Donbass suffer because of Russia, and this is the Russians saying, the rest of Europe is next. We're going to nuke all of your cities and kill hundreds of millions of people if you don't let us win. Just let us win. Let Ukraine die. And I'm not joking, guys. It is very important for everyone in the world that Russia does not win, not just for the sake of Ukraine. We cannot let this ideology, this philosophy, this culture permeate across the Eurasian continent. I'm going to link some videos down below, and this is very disturbing content. I see videos on Twitter all the time of how the Russians discipline their own, how the Russians brutalize civilians, and even for me, this is shocking. So this first video, this is the 15th Motorized Rifle Brigade of Russia, and they bury deserters up to their necks in what's called a tight pit. So this is a video of a Russian man accused of being a deserter, buried up to his neck, and then left to die. If he dies, he's just reported as missing in action. In this clip, these are Russian men who have been put inside some kind of metal pipe or barrel. No food or water, left there for days in the freezing cold. Sometimes these Russian men are put in these pits or pipes until they're willing to surrender their salaries to their commanding officers. This video is pretty horrifying. It's pretty shocking, and it gets worse. In this video, I watched it, and I kind of regret watching it. A Russian commander has thrown two of his subordinates in a pit, and he's filming this, and he's telling them, you have to kill each other, and I'll let one of you out. Using your bare hands, you must kill the other man in the pit. He bets on it. And then the video plays one of the Russian men strangling the other one to death. These are uniformed soldiers in the Russian military, and this is all caught on camera. This is their culture. This is who the Russians really are. This is how they treat their own. So you can only imagine how they treat foreigners, how they treat non-Russians. I remember this scene from Django Unchained, where the slave master, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, orders two men to fight to the death for his amusement. And this is real. Caught on camera, on the internet for everyone to see. Where is the global reaction? Where is the global outrage that human beings are being treated this way? And it's still ambiguous who are the good guys to some people? I also want to read this post from UA Voyager. After a year and a half of silence, my relative from the temporarily occupied village on the right bank of Kherson region got in touch. She is alive. A kind neighbor gave her the chance to call, hiding a Ukrainian SIM card. Calling from the occupied territory can be life-threatening. She says it's a complete disaster. She's lucky because she's elderly and alone, so the occupiers don't bother her. People are scared, just surviving. She's crying, doesn't believe we'll ever meet again. She says she thinks she's hearing me for the last time. I promise that everything will be fine and that she needs to hold on, but it's hard to believe that myself. It's horrifying to think that Ukrainian civilians now for over 3 years have been surviving. This phone call came from one of the villages in the occupied Kherson region. And these people need to be saved. They all need to be liberated. Russia must be expelled from all of this territory. Let's get to some other headlines. Poland accuses Russia of ordering a major fire in Warsaw last year. And this is a shopping center in the capital city of Warsaw. And Poland is saying they have the evidence that Russian intelligence directed the sabotage and arson of this shopping center. Poland's response is they're shutting down the consulate in Krakow, expelling Russian diplomats, but Russia's never going to stop. Until Putin is dead or in jail, until the Russian military is defeated, they're never going to stop killing people. They're never going to stop sabotaging and stealing and raping and brutalizing people. Because that's all that remains of Russian culture now. There is nothing else. Devotion to the Tsar and glory to the empire. They're never going to stop interfering in other nations' elections as well. This was the first round of voting in Romania, and the pro-Russian candidates got 40% of the votes. So the runoff election between the top two candidates is happening on May 18th. And we got the latest poll. It's a dead heat, 48-48. Will Romania remain a capitalist democracy that wants to have real freedoms and prosperity? Or will they allow a far-right autocrat to corrupt and take control of the government and become subservient to Russia? Romania this week has the risk of becoming the next Belarus or Hungary. We'll find out together. This is good news. Pope Leo talks with Zelensky in his first known call with a foreign leader. The first foreign leader that the new Pope decided to make a phone call to was President Zelensky. I spoke with Pope Leo XIV. It was our first conversation, but already a very warm and truly substantive one. I thanked His Holiness for his support of Ukraine and all of our people. We deeply value his words about the need to achieve a just and lasting peace for our country and the release of prisoners. I invited His Holiness to make a visit to Ukraine. Such a visit would bring real hope to all believers and to all of our people. We agreed to stay in contact and plan an in-person meeting in the near future. The new Pope speaks English, so Zelensky can directly communicate with him, and I do think that the new Pope is going to make a visit to Kyiv probably at some point in the next 3 months. I think the Pope will take the train ride, and he'll probably tell the Russians ahead of time when he'll be there, so the Russians don't bomb the capital city again. But this is important, and I really like the new Pope. He's doing the correct thing. Final clip I have for you is 2 Ukrainian defenders that found a stray dog wrapped up in some barbed wire, and they saved the dog's life.
Не, нормально, нормально, нормально. Я же с ней воевал. Так, тихо. Да, давай я. Я туда там раз и
Друг человека, да? Я думаю, ти палкою і тренуєш.
так, блядь, вона мене кусала перше время. Я ж поки до неї присобачився, да? Чи худе, оце больне, да? Ти молодець. Все, зашибись. Спасибо.
That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.